Alright, so we're back to talking about Latin America. Our EQ stayed the same as yesterday. It's to analyze and evaluate the relationship between humans and the physical environment. Our FQ changed. Today's FQ is how have past events helped to shape the culture of Latin America. So today you're going to take some time to complete your BOCA. You're going to take notes, and then you're going to get to work on your project, and then at the end of the class, you'll do an exit ticket. So right now you're going to start on your BOCA. So as soon as I finish giving you directions, you're going to pause the video. You're going to go into eBackpack, World Cultural Geography, Unit 3, Latin America, and you will see the Unit 3 BOCA. You're going to complete Day 1's questions, and as soon as you're done with that, you're going to resume the video. Please remember to complete the BOCA in Notability so that all of your changes will be auto-saved and backed up to Drive. If you're looking at this slide, then you should have already completed the Day 1's BOCA questions. If you have not already completed the Day 1 BOCA questions, please pause the video, follow the directions on the previous slide, and complete the Day 1 BOCA. If you have already completed Day 1 BOCA, then you will continue your Cornell notes from yesterday. You need to open them up and get ready to complete the notes. Make sure that you have the title as Unit 3 Latin America and that you have written the essential question on the top of the first page. Alright, we're going to look at some of the ancient empires of Latin America. We're going to start with the Aztec. The Aztec were located furthest north in central Mexico. They ruled most of the region until they were conquered by the Spanish. Their society was centered around their gods and their religion. They built pyramids and temples, and they would even go to war to capture people and then sacrifice their prisoners to their gods. At the height of their power, it's estimated that they had a population of about 200,000 people. They had advanced cities with causeways that were built to help people get from the mainland to different areas, and they had aqueducts to bring fresh water into the cities. They were conquered in 1521 by Hernan Cortez, who then tore down their capital and built what is now Mexico City. The next group that we're going to talk about are the Mayas. They were located in what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, a little further south in Mexico than the Aztecs. They're an extremely early civilization. It is believed that they began somewhere around 2000 BC. They became very powerful, and they were organized into powerful city-states, and the city-states over time would shift who was in power depending on which city-state was dominant at the time. If you were to look at the modern countries in Mexico, the Mayan Empire would cover what is today the Yucatan Peninsula, Guatemala, Belize, and northern El Salvador. The Mayans built pyramids and temples to help to prove, that they were worshiping their gods. They are the only ancient American civilization to develop an advanced written language. They excelled in math, art, architecture, and astronomy, and there was a period of time known as the Golden Age of the Maya civilization that occurred between 250 AD and 900 AD. All right, and the final empire that we're going to look at is the Inca Empire. Alright, so the Inca Empire centered around Peru, but they ruled most of the west coast of South America. They had an extremely complex government and a system of roads. Between the government and the roads, they were able to ensure that every person had a job, a home, and food on the table. At the height of their power, it's estimated that they had around 10 million people. They were conquered by Pizarro in 1533, but it's very important to point out that by the time Pizarro arrived, this empire was already severely weakened by civil war and diseases such as smallpox. So they far outnumbered the Spanish, but they were just too weak to take them on, and the Spaniards overtook them. And the voyages of Columbus between 1492 and 1493, he discovered what became known as the island of Hispaniola. This was the first settlement in the Caribbean. Today, it is Haiti and the Dominican Republic. So when we were talking about the ancient empires, I mentioned a few people such as Cortez and Pizarro. These were European explorers that came in with the intent of colonizing the region. We would call them conquistadors, or Spanish conquerors of the New World. Hernan Cortez is one example. He defeated the Aztec in 1521. Pizarro is another, who defeated the Inca in 1533. If you look at the image right here, the map, it gives you an idea of who had claimed territory in which area. So you can see, for example, that Portuguese, claimed what is Brazil, and then you have Spanish territories, and then what the Spanish claim is theirs. So, and this is a picture of Hernan Cortez, and then this is just to give you an idea of the typical appearance of conquistadors. So one of the reasons that these European explorers were so intent on colonizing this region was for the natural resources that were easily available. And I apologize in advance for some of the formatting issues on this slide, but I'm going to make sure that it's real clear what we're talking about here. So gold and silver were the primary pull factors for European explorers to come to the New World. In Mexico, Hispaniola, and Brazil, gold was abundant, so they were able to acquire a lot of wealth through gold. In Bolivia, which is what this says right here, I'll write it for you, there was a lot of silver, particularly in the city of Potosi. Okay. In Colombia, there was emeralds and precious stones, so that was a big pull factor for people to go there as well. The Columbian Exchange refers to the transmission of plants, animals, and diseases between the Americas, Europe, and Africa. So essentially it's whatever the European explorers brought with them, diseases, animals, plants, to the New World, and then whatever they took back. Same thing, diseases, animals, plants. So you had things like potatoes that had never been in Europe were now in Europe, and things like horses that had never been in the Americas were now in America because of the Columbian Exchange. When the Spaniards first began to establish the New World, they created cash crops. And these cash crops were very labor intensive to grow. So they would capture the native population and force them to work. However, when that population of natives depleted, died off, whatever the case may be, they had to find that labor from someplace else. And that began the African slave trade. So essentially what would happen, if you look at this picture, you would have cash crops here in the New World. Those cash crops would go to Europe, where they would be traded for manufactured goods, which would then be sent to Africa, which would then be traded for slaves. The slaves would then be taken to the New World, traded for cash crops, and round it went. So after this colonial period started to come to an end, most Latin American countries were able to gain their independence during the 1800s. And if you look at the image, it's color-coded to give you an idea of about when the particular countries gained independence. But even after independence, there was still political and economic instability that originated in the European dominance of the colonial period. So the United States is tied to Latin America in many ways, but one really major way is the construction of the Panama Canal. President Theodore Roosevelt oversaw this project and made it a reality. It is a 48-mile man-made shipping lane that connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It was opened on August 15th, 1914. Now, before the Panama Canal, If you wanted to transport something, say from New York over to California, you would have to go down and all the way around the Cape of South America. But because of the Panama Canal, you are now able to cut in between, which cuts your mileage and shipping costs dramatically. So right now, you should have taken all the notes from the slides. You should take no more than 5 minutes to create the questions, approximately 1 per slide or concept. So if you're looking at this slide, you should have your BOCA, your notes, and your questions completed. You're going to continue your project from yesterday. I want you to go back to eBackpack, look in the Unit 3 Latin America folder, look at the culminating project folder, and inside of that folder is the rubrics. I want to make sure that you review those rubrics and pacing guides. 1, so you stay on track, and 2, so you make sure you get all of the requirements that are needed to earn 100%. When you leave here today, you should have day 2 complete. And if you finish day 2 early, go ahead and work ahead. Your project will be due on February 8th, which is this coming Monday. You will have an exit ticket today. I will stop you 6 minutes before the bell. That will give you 3 minutes to complete your exit ticket and 3 minutes to pack up.